Okay. So a couple of pieces came out today online that are being much discussed in my world. The first, if we could put this up, please, a headline from Politico. Jonathan Martin, their columnist, wrote a column that basically says people don't understand what Kamala Harris is doing. He analyzes in great detail the event she did yesterday with Liz Cheney, and basically says, if you read between the lines, and I know Jonathan Martin a little bit, if you read between the lines, he's basically saying Democrats are in a panic because they don't understand her message, and that campaigning with Liz Cheney on democracy is not going to win the undecided voters. Okay. Second is a column or an article in The Atlantic by Jeffrey Goldberg, who runs The Atlantic. And that story, again, I don't know if we have that headline. If we do, please put it up. That story has, as The Atlantic has done in the past, that story has headlines or blind quotes, rather, from people alleging Donald Trump said things that are quite provocative, racially charged, disrespectful of the military. The Atlantic has run stories like this before. The Trump campaign says these quotes are made up. The stories are made up. They came back both in the story and elsewhere. I don't want to get into the details of the Atlantic story here. I haven't time to do any of the reporting myself. It didn't run that long ago. But it's the kind of story that Republicans look at and get furious at, including the Trump campaign. And it's the kind of story that Democrats believe will finally open the eyes of those Americans still inclined to vote for Donald Trump, because they'll argue that it reveals who he really is. These last 2 weeks are going to be filled with things like this. And I can tell you, without going into detail, that I've been pitched a story about Donald Trump now for about a week that, if true, would end his campaign. And there's all sorts of things like that flying around. I'm not the only one who's been pitched it. But we have to recognize how high the stakes are, how high the emotions are. And every day I'll be saying the same thing. Please work in your community, in your family, in your circles. Let's try to tamp this down. The country's been bitterly divided for a long time. Donald Trump's presence on the national stage has exacerbated it. It's really bad right now. And we have to be in a position where we can survive as a nation regardless of who wins.